Hi, welcome to Bernie's Fireside Stories on Tour, and I feel very privileged and I'm really chuffed to have my my good mate Anthony Crawford to read a story that he's written himself, and it's brilliant. So you're going to be in for a smashing story. I think it's well written, so well done, Anthony.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're all going to enjoy it. Anyway, over to Anthony.
Okay, this story was written about 10 years ago, and with Bernie's help we found the title, The Revolving Door. He woke with a start. Darkness. Silence but for the sound of his breath. His eyes adjusted slowly as he scanned the room. Nothing in it was familiar. He could make out only the huge trunk of the wardrobe against the opposite wall, and nothing more in the darkness. But for the chair close to the window, dimly lit from something beyond. The wooden chair in which he had sat for the first time that evening, as he had listened for what seemed like hours to the comings and goings of those occupying rooms above and below. There it was again, tapping the window. Tap, tap. He turned, his heart pounding. Tap, tap. The soft impression of a branch moving in the darkness. He scanned the blackness outside. Wind. Wind moaned through the gaps in the frame, cracked and flaking with age and lack of care. A lower, distant sound. Leaves rustling. Tap, tap. The branch insistent. He shivered. The nylon sheet clung to his clammy thighs. Outside, clouds shifted across the sky. A shaft of moonlight, for a moment, lit branch and tree before the dark regained its grip. Just an autumn night, he told himself, and tried to recall those of his youth as if to invoke its familiarity. No use. His imagination dulled by years of regularity. He knew he would never rest without confirming for himself in the blackness outside nothing moved but the wind. So he rose slowly from his bed, peeled the sheets from his thighs, cursed the wooden boards that betrayed his movements as he stooped toward the window and gingerly moved aside the tattered, yellowed net curtain. Nothing could be seen in the darkness outside. He shivered, standing naked in the darkness, waiting, watching. He was not sure how long it was he stood in the cold before convincing himself it was safe to return to his bed. And it was longer still before he allowed himself at last to embrace the sleep that clawed at his restlessness. Knock, knock. He was awake instantly and winced at the glare of the sun reflected in the mirror on the door of the wardrobe opposite. It was as if it had lay in wait all night for this attack. You awake? A woman's voice. What could she be after? He responded as he always had, betray no fear, faced them at the door. He opened it, wide enough to show his face, but not so wide as to betray weakness. A black woman with a welcoming smile and colourful clothes, his new neighbour, Alicia. Was he a churchgoer? No. He would be very welcome to join her any time. Unsure why he was smiling, he declined politely. Alone again, he sighed, relieved. That evening, he warmed a tin of beans on the stove, rejoicing in his abundance, as he mopped the last of the sauce from the pan with a slice of bread. He sat back, his belly fuller than he could remember, and mused on the events of the day. He'd received a cheque, his weekly income, had seemed incredibly generous until his return from the shop with a few rations that had cost far more than he'd expected, and he wondered how on earth his money would last. Then there were the cars. Cars everywhere at such speeds it was difficult to judge when it was safe to cross. And the people, indifferent to his attempts to make conversation at the till, impatient for him to hurry in the queue. He was a child, bewildered, lost, alone. He knew he must face his insecurities, must make himself known to the other residents occupying the 8 dilapidated bedstead sitting rooms that comprised what was once clearly a wealthy and powerful household, built on the bones and sinews of slaves, on the mouth of a river, the lifeblood of the city in which he mused with a sense of irony. He now found himself ensconced. Although slavers long since had passed away, he fancied that in the stillness of this grey, oversized, chilly room, some resonance of the spirit of the age had embedded itself in the fabric of these ageing, cracked, plastered walls. And beyond, there would always be those quick to exploit signs of weakness, keen to prey on the unwary. He wondered what tomorrow and the following days would hold. His appointment had been arranged for him. His probation officer first, then a money advisor, basic skills tutor, housing support worker, counsellor. Why so many faces? He hoped one at least might help him find work, hoped one might speak to him as if he had independent thoughts, hopes, aspirations, rather than as they usually did, as someone to whom things are said, done, imposed. And beyond the coming weeks his imagination failed. The future expanded like a yawning black hole. For a second he wished himself back where the rules were clear, the routine predictable, the threats discernible, and the remedies understood. The past was concrete. The warmth of his cell, the comfort of familiar things, his cup, spoon, shaving mirror, items acquired over years from those who wished him well and shook his hand, fear and compassion in their eyes. The thought passed. After so many years, at last he was free from a sentence that had belonged to someone else. A sentence he should never have served. Nobody, nothing would ever take that from him. To survive, to stay free, he must act as he had learned to do in the last 12 years. Refute the past, face his fears, seek alliances, strengthen himself to face whatever trials may come. As darkness fell, the house took on a new complexion. People coming and going, shouts in the streets, the voices in rooms above, below, hurried footfalls on the stairs, an argument over money outside his door. A woman's voice, shrill and weak, boasted by conviction and a coarse vocabulary that told the hearer she meant business, a baby in her arms whimpering. Rarely was the house silent. He sat in his chair and watched the cars stop in the road outside. Though the makes and models were unfamiliar, the quality belied that of the occupants. Upstairs, a deep, powerful voice screamed obscenities. Then a woman's voice, fearful but defiant. The man's voice came again. Doors slammed. A baby's cry. The commotion continued, at times lower, repeated thuds. A woman whimpering, heard between the pauses of the baby's cry. Then at last, footfalls on the stairs. In the silence that followed, the faces of the inmates he had left behind came to him, accusing his cowardice, and in the darkness he could not answer the charge. He was tried and condemned. But then there were others here, other residents in positions of safety relative to his own. Why would no one else lend a hand to a woman in distress? Had he attempted to help, what might result for him? He'd convinced the parole board he was no risk to others, no threat to good order. Any hint of involvement in anything untoward, and he would be returned without question. He had his own life to protect. A life that for 12 years had been buried, now miraculously resurrected. Not even the life of a stranger's child was worth risking that. He felt the pit of his stomach tighten. Somewhere he knew he could not again ignore such cries. He considered the promises he had received prior to release and hoped his housing officer would find him some accommodation more suited to his needs. As the days turned to weeks, he came to accept this would be his home. This dimly lit room with high, wide grey walls growing colder as winter set in. The oversized wardrobe with its chips and scrapes, the rickety chair with its loose joints became his companions. He even began to plan changes. He might fill the cracked plaster, paint the walls, fill the empty room with a little comfort, perhaps a beanbag, perhaps even a carpet. Perhaps. If he could obtain a loan from the social. He even grew to enjoy the view from the window, the tree that seemed to invade the room from outside. He grew used to meeting the colourful lady, his neighbour, whose name now he could not remember, as he came and went. He remembered her smile, lingering just a little longer than was comfortable. He greeted the pale, gaunt, untidily kempt woman with child from the room above. And by degrees he learned of her trade and the need that drove her to offer her bed to violent villains. He pitied her enslavement, but more than that, he pitied the child in her arms. He wanted to say so, wanted to show her, but never knew how, had never learned how to convey compassion to strangers. And she was indifferent to his greetings, her eyes full of fury or longing or glazed, most often glazed. The evening following his 12th appointment with his probation officer, he found sleep more easily. In spite of her insistence, he accepted his guilt for an offence he had never committed. She nevertheless seemed to believe to be sincere. His hopes, his aspirations had seemed to connect with his anxieties. She'd promised training. Forklift trucks were an option, and beyond that, the prospect of paid employment. For the first time since his release, he began to hope he might, after all, learn to live his new life. He was awoken by a scream. He sat up in the darkness. It had come from the room above. He'd grown used to hearing commotion above, but there was something... The scream again. Fear. Real fear. A thud. He leapt from the bed. Thud, thud, thud! As he put on his pants and shirt, paused. The woman's voice upstairs, pleading. He opened the door, moved to the stairs to see if he could see the landing upstairs. Inside! The man had a powerful athletic frame, clearly used to exercise. His eyes glared between flecks of long blonde hair. The baseball bat in his hands moved. Now! Still, he struggled to take in the scene. His eyes shifted from the hateful face of the man to the bloodied, despairing vision of the pale woman on her knees. The man responded to his indecision moved toward him. He heard a voice as if on a radio as he gained consciousness. Then he heard a closer voice respond. Yes, witnesses say he had complained about the noise, but then attacked with a weapon for no apparent reason. He opened his eyes. 4 police officers glared down at him, one with a foot on his neck. He was told to relax. He was relaxed. He felt his hands cuffed behind his back. To his left, the face of a man. Rage in his eyes. The bloodied woman. She looked fearful. He heard her explain that the man on the floor had been stalking her, watching her on the stairs from his window. At one time he seemed to have been naked. It was some time before he realised it was he she spoke of. He looked to his right. There was his neighbour, Alicia, her hand on her mouth. As he surveyed the scene, it hit him like a bolt. All of these people, the woman on the stairs, the man, his other neighbours, the police, his probation officer, and all those others he was expected to see, all were white, except Alicia. How had he not noticed that before? He turned again to see her close her door. He thought of his warm, familiar cell. He could see it in detail. Then a wave of anguish swept over him with the realisation that it would not be to his own cell that he would return. He felt himself being lifted to his feet, a police officer on either side. That's it.
Oh, well done, Anthony. That was very, very moving. Thank you so much. And